Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundation of Deception. Clayton Cassidy had built his life on three pillars: precision, loyalty, and control. At 32, he owned the most successful security consulting firm in Denver, specializing in corporate protection and private investigations. His clients included politicians, celebrities, and Fortune 500 executives who trusted him with their darkest secrets. Clayton's reputation was built on one simple principle. He never forgot a betrayal, and he always collected what was owed. Standing 6'3" with steel-gray eyes and calloused hands from years of military training, Clayton commanded respect wherever he walked. Former Special Forces, he'd served 3 tours before transitioning to private security. His methodical nature and ability to read people had made him wealthy, but had also made him solitary. Until he met Stephanie Holloway. Stephanie was everything Clayton thought he needed. At 28, she was a real estate agent with flowing auburn hair and a smile that could disarm even Clayton's suspicious nature. They'd met at a charity gala 2 years ago, where she'd approached him with confidence that impressed him. She seemed genuine, sweet, and refreshingly uncomplicated after years of dealing with liars and manipulators. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," she'd said that first night, gesturing to the crowded ballroom. "You're not wrong," Clayton had replied, immediately drawn to her directness. What he didn't know was that Stephanie had researched him extensively before approaching. She'd learned about his wealth, his trust issues, and most importantly, his fierce loyalty to those he cared about. She'd crafted her entire personality around what she thought he wanted: a woman who valued family, honesty, and traditional values. Aaron Gillespie had been Clayton's closest friend since their military days. They'd served together, bled together, and when they returned home, they'd remained brothers in everything but blood. Aaron was Clayton's opposite in many ways. Charming where Clayton was serious, impulsive where Clayton was calculated. He worked as a fitness trainer and part-time bartender, content with a simpler life that Clayton sometimes envied. The three of them had formed an unlikely triangle. Clayton trusted Aaron completely, often inviting him to join them for dinners, vacations, and family gatherings. Aaron had been the first person Clayton told when he decided to propose to Stephanie. In fact, Aaron had helped him pick out the ring. What Clayton didn't see was the way Stephanie's eyes lingered on Aaron during their group dinners. He missed the subtle touches, the private jokes, the way they seemed to communicate without words. His trust in both of them was absolute, making him blind to what was happening right under his nose. The engagement had been everything Stephanie claimed to want. Clayton proposed on Christmas Eve at her family's cabin in Aspen, with her entire family present. Harold Holloway, Stephanie's father, had pulled Clayton aside that night with tears in his eyes. "I've never seen my daughter so happy," Harold had said, gripping Clayton's shoulder. "You're exactly the kind of man I hoped she'd find." Harold was a retired school principal, a man of old-fashioned values who'd raised Stephanie as a single father after her mother died when Stephanie was 12. He saw Clayton as the son he'd never had, successful, honorable, and devoted to his daughter. The wedding planning had consumed the next 6 months, with Stephanie throwing herself into every detail with an enthusiasm that seemed genuine. But Stephanie's real enthusiasm was reserved for her secret meetings with Aaron. They'd been careful, meeting at his apartment when Clayton was traveling for work, which happened frequently. The thrill of the forbidden had intensified their attraction, and they convinced themselves they were in love. Stephanie told herself she deserved better than Clayton's controlled, measured affection. She wanted passion, spontaneity, the kind of raw emotion that Aaron provided. Aaron, for his part, had tried to resist initially, but Stephanie was persistent, and his loyalty to Clayton warred with his growing obsession with her. She played on his insecurities, suggesting that Clayton looked down on him, that he deserved someone who appreciated him for who he was rather than what he could provide. The night before the wedding, as Clayton finalized security arrangements for the ceremony, Stephanie and Aaron met at the hotel bar where most of the wedding party was staying. They'd been careful for months, but tonight felt different. Tomorrow, Stephanie would legally belong to another man, and the weight of that reality hung between them. "We could leave tonight," Aaron had whispered, his hand covering hers across the small table. "Just disappear before tomorrow." Stephanie shook her head. "My father would never forgive me. Besides, Clayton would hunt us down. You know what he's capable of." It was true. Clayton's reputation in certain circles was fearsome. He wasn't just a security consultant. He was a man who solved problems permanently. But Stephanie had a different plan, one that would let her have everything she wanted while destroying the man who thought he owned her. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Foundation. The morning of the rehearsal dinner, Clayton noticed subtle changes he'd dismissed before. Stephanie seemed distant during their private breakfast, her usual chatter replaced by nervous energy. When he mentioned adjusting their honeymoon plans to include a stop in Ireland, something she'd mentioned wanting to see, she barely responded. "Everything okay?" he asked, studying her face with the same intensity he used to evaluate potential threats. "Just wedding nerves," she replied, not meeting his eyes. "There's so much to coordinate." Clayton accepted the explanation because he wanted to. His world was built on reading deception, but love had made him willfully blind to the signs. He spent the day handling last-minute security arrangements, ensuring the venue was properly protected and that his team was positioned to handle the high-profile guest list. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Holloway family estate, a sprawling property that Harold had purchased during better financial times. Clayton had insisted on covering all wedding expenses, knowing Harold's retirement income was limited. He'd grown genuinely fond of the older man and wanted to give Stephanie the wedding she claimed to dream of. During the dinner, Clayton watched Aaron closely for the first time in months. Something felt off in his friend's demeanor. Too much forced laughter, avoiding eye contact, drinking more than usual. When Clayton approached him on the terrace, Aaron's nervousness was palpable. "Big day tomorrow," Clayton said, offering Aaron a scotch. "Thanks for standing with me, brother." Aaron's hand trembled slightly as he accepted the glass. "Wouldn't miss it, Clay. You know that." But Clayton did know something was wrong now. Aaron's tell had always been the same since their military days. He touched his left ear when lying. He'd just done it 3 times in 30 seconds. Clayton's mind shifted into operational mode. Years of training kicked in as he began cataloging inconsistencies. Stephanie's phone constantly buzzing with texts she wouldn't explain, Aaron's sudden interest in working late at the gym when he usually joined their evening plans, the way they both tensed when he entered a room unexpectedly. That night, Clayton lay awake beside Stephanie, watching her sleep. Her phone sat on the nightstand, and for the first time in their relationship, he considered violating her privacy. But he didn't need to. Her phone lit up with a message at 2:17 a.m. "Aaron, can't wait to hold you tomorrow night." Clayton's blood turned to ice as he read the preview text. His military training had taught him to remain calm under fire, but this betrayal cut deeper than any enemy bullet. Quietly, he took photos of the message with his own phone, then began planning. By dawn, Clayton had accessed Stephanie's phone while she showered. The message history painted a picture that made his jaw clench with rage. Months of secret meetings, declarations of love, and most damning, detailed discussions about their plan for after the wedding. "Stephanie, once we're married, I'll have access to everything. Clayton's prenup has a clause about infidelity. If he cheats, I get half of everything. But if I cheat and he divorces me, I get nothing." "Aaron, so what's the plan?" "Stephanie, we make him cheat first. I know exactly how to push his buttons. There's a woman in his past, Sarah Travis, his ex-fiancé from before the military. She's divorced now, works at that gallery downtown. A few strategically placed encounters, some photos, and we'll have our evidence." "Aaron, that's cold, Steph. Even for you." "Stephanie, it's survival, baby. I deserve more than being some control freak's trophy wife. Besides, after what Clayton's done to people who crossed him, isn't it poetic justice?" Clayton's hands clenched as he read further. They'd been watching him, learning his patterns, planning to destroy him systematically. But what made his rage turn white-hot was the final exchange from the previous week. "Aaron, sometimes I feel guilty." Clay trusts me completely. Stephanie, trust is a weakness in men like him. They think their loyalty should be returned, but loyalty is earned. He's never earned mine. He just assumed it. Clayton closed the phone and stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. His face was a mask of control, but his eyes burned with something cold and calculating. They wanted to play games? He'd show them what a real strategist could do. The wedding was scheduled for 4 p.m. at St. Catherine's Cathedral, with reception to follow at the Grand Hyatt. 300 guests, including several of Clayton's most influential clients and contacts. Stephanie and Aaron thought they were going to humiliate him publicly. Instead, they just provided him with the perfect stage for their own destruction. Clayton spent the morning making phone calls to certain contacts. Men who owed him favors, professionals who specialized in finding information that people preferred to keep buried. By noon, he had dossiers on both Stephanie and Aaron that would have impressed his old intelligence unit. The most interesting discovery was Aaron's gambling problem, hidden debts to some very dangerous people that Stephanie knew nothing about. And Stephanie's real estate career was built on a foundation of lies to clients and falsified documents. They both had secrets that could destroy them, and Clayton now held every card. At 3 p.m., as he adjusted his tuxedo one final time, Clayton's phone buzzed with a message from his private investigator. Package delivered to your suite. Everything you requested is included. Clayton smiled for the first time in 24 hours. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Chapter 3. The Revelation. The cathedral was magnificent, adorned with white roses and golden light filtering through stained glass windows. 300 guests filled the pews, including several city council members, federal judges, and corporate executives who respected Clayton's reputation. Harold Holloway sat in the front row, tears already forming in his eyes as he waited to walk his daughter down the aisle. Clayton stood at the altar beside Aaron, who was sweating despite the cool interior temperature. Father McKenna, who had known Clayton since his youth, smiled warmly as they waited. The organist began the processional, and the guests rose as the bridal party appeared. Stephanie looked stunning in her Vera Wang gown, a family heirloom veil flowing behind her as she walked arm in arm with her father. Her smile was radiant, the perfect picture of a blushing bride. But Clayton saw through the performance now. Every gesture was calculated, every expression designed to sell the illusion. As Harold placed Stephanie's hand in Clayton's, the older man whispered, "Take care of her, son." "I will," Clayton replied, meaning something entirely different than Harold intended. The ceremony proceeded normally through the vows. Stephanie's voice trembled with what the guests assumed was emotion, but Clayton recognized as nervous excitement. She was minutes away from what she thought would be her victory. Aaron's hands shook as he held the rings, and twice he had to wipe sweat from his forehead. Father McKenna reached the traditional question. If anyone present knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. The cathedral fell silent. Clayton felt Stephanie's hand tense in his as she waited for the moment to pass. Instead, Clayton reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small remote control. "Actually, Father," Clayton said, his voice carrying clearly through the cathedral, "I believe our guests should know exactly who they're witnessing take vows today." The massive screen behind the altar, installed for displaying scripture during services, flickered to life. Clayton had arranged for additional screens throughout the cathedral to ensure every guest had a clear view. The first image was a photograph of Stephanie and Aaron kissing in his apartment, taken 3 weeks ago. The cathedral erupted in gasps and murmurs. Stephanie's face went white, and Aaron stepped backward as if he'd been struck. "Clay, what are you?" Stephanie started, but her voice was cut off as audio began playing through the cathedral sound system. It was a recording of their conversation from 2 nights ago, crystal clear and devastating. "Once we're married, I'll have access to everything. We make him cheat first. I deserve more than being some control freak's trophy wife." Harold Holloway stood up slowly, his face a mask of horror and rage. Around the cathedral, guests were pulling out phones, some recording, others texting frantically. The city's social elite were witnessing the spectacle of the year. Clayton turned to face his bride, his voice carrying to every corner of the cathedral. Did you really think I'd gotten this far in life by being careless, Stephanie? I've toppled governments and destroyed corporations. Did you imagine that two amateur schemers could outmaneuver me? Stephanie's composure finally cracked. You bastard. You spied on me. I protected myself, Clayton corrected. Something I learned never to neglect. Aaron tried to move toward the exit, but Clayton's security team, positioned throughout the cathedral, blocked every doorway. They weren't there for the wedding's protection. They were there to ensure no one left until Clayton was finished. The screen changed to display financial records showing Aaron's gambling debts. Over $200,000 owed to some very unforgiving people. Then it shifted to Stephanie's falsified real estate documents and evidence of her fraud against elderly clients. The beautiful thing about the truth, Clayton continued, is that it doesn't care about your plans. Harold Holloway walked slowly toward the altar, his face twisted with shame and fury. When he reached Stephanie, his hand moved before anyone could react. The slap echoed through the cathedral like a gunshot. How could you? He whispered, his voice breaking. How could you do this to a man who loved you? To me? Stephanie's facade finally shattered completely. Daddy, you don't understand. Understand perfectly, Harold cut her off. I raised a monster. Father McKenna, stunned by the revelation, found his voice. I think we should conclude this gathering. Not quite yet, Clayton said. He nodded to his team, and two men stepped forward with legal documents. Stephanie, Aaron, these are restraining orders. You're not to come within 500 feet of me, my property, or my business. Violation will result in immediate arrest. He turned to address the entire cathedral. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending what was supposed to be my wedding. Instead, you've witnessed something much more valuable, the truth about the people we trust. Clayton's voice hardened as he faced Stephanie and Aaron one final time. You wanted to destroy me? You've destroyed yourselves. By Monday morning, every real estate firm in the state will know about Stephanie's fraudulent practices. Aaron, your gambling creditors received an anonymous tip about your location this morning. I'd suggest you leave town quickly. The implications hit them simultaneously. Stephanie's career was over, her reputation in ruins. Aaron's life was now in danger from the people he owed money to, and their humiliation had been witnessed by the most influential people in the city. As the cathedral slowly emptied, Harold Holloway approached Clayton. His eyes were red with tears and shame. Clayton, I'm so sorry. I thought I knew my daughter. Clayton's expression softened slightly for the older man. Harold, this isn't your fault. You raised her with good values. What she chose to do with them was her decision. Is there anything I can do? Any way to make this right? Clayton considered for a moment. Actually, there is. I have a proposition for you. Chapter 4, The Aftermath. The Grand Hyatt Ballroom had been transformed for a reception that would never happen. Ice sculptures melted slowly beside untouched champagne fountains while confused catering staff waited for instructions that would never come. Clayton arrived alone at 7 p.m., still wearing his tuxedo, to address the situation personally. The hotel manager, Maria Santos, approached him cautiously. Mr. Cassidy, we're so sorry about. Well, we're not sure what exactly happened, but the wedding is canceled, Clayton said simply. I'll honor the full payment as contracted. Please distribute the food to local shelters and send the flowers to area hospitals. The staff can keep any gratuities that would have been earned tonight. Maria's relief was visible. She'd been preparing for a difficult conversation about payment and damages. That's very generous, sir. Is there anything else we can do? Actually, yes. I'd like to use the ballroom tonight for a different kind of gathering. Within 2 hours, Clayton had transformed the space into something unprecedented, a celebration of truth. He'd send invitations to every guest who'd witnessed the cathedral incident, along with several journalists and business associates. The message was simple: join me for an evening of honesty. Open bar, full disclosure. By 9 p.m., nearly 200 people had arrived, driven by curiosity and the promise of insider information from one of the city's most connected men. Clayton stood at the center of the ballroom, commanding attention without effort. Friends, colleagues, fellow survivors of this afternoon's entertainment, he began, raising a glass of scotch. Tonight, I want to share something with you that's rarer than an honest politician. The complete truth about what you witnessed. The crowd leaned in, recognizing they were about to receive information that most people would kill for. Stephanie Holloway and Aaron Gillespie didn't just betray my trust. They attempted to manipulate the legal system, defraud me of millions of dollars, and destroy my reputation. Their plan failed not because I'm lucky, but because I never stopped doing what made me successful. I verified everything. Clayton gestured to the screens around the ballroom, which now displayed additional evidence he hadn't revealed at the cathedral. Financial records showing Stephanie's attempts to access his accounts, photographs of Aaron meeting with divorce attorneys, and recorded conversations discussing how to fabricate evidence of Clayton's infidelity. Ladies and gentlemen, let this serve as a reminder. In business, in politics, in life, trust but verify. Always. The crowd was riveted. Several city council members exchanged meaningful glances, recognizing the implicit warning. Clayton wasn't just sharing his personal story. He was demonstrating his capabilities to anyone who might consider crossing him in the future. Federal Judge Patricia Graham approached Clayton during a brief intermission. "Mr. Cassidy, I have to ask, how long have you known about their plan?" "I suspected something was wrong for weeks," Clayton replied. "But I confirmed it less than 24 hours ago." Sometimes the heart wants to ignore what the mind already knows. And you chose to expose them publicly rather than handle it privately because Clayton's smile was cold. Because betrayal in private can be denied. Betrayal witnessed by 300 people becomes truth that can never be escaped. Meanwhile, across town, Stephanie sat in her apartment staring at her phone. The device had been buzzing constantly since the cathedral incident. Calls from angry clients, text messages from former friends, and emails from reporters seeking comment. Her real estate license was being reviewed by the state board, and 2 clients had already filed complaints with the Attorney General's office. Aaron was in worse shape. He'd returned to his apartment to find 3 large men waiting in the hallway, representatives of the people he owed money to. Clayton's anonymous tip had accelerated their timeline considerably. Aaron Gillespie, the largest man, had asked pleasantly. I can explain," Aaron had started. "No need. We just want to discuss your payment schedule. Our boss saw some interesting footage on social media this afternoon. Seems like you've had some recent complications in your personal life." The message was clear. His previous grace period was over. Clayton's revelation hadn't just destroyed Aaron's reputation. It had painted a target on his back. Back at the Hyatt, Clayton was fielding questions from journalists and business associates with the skill of a seasoned politician. Each answer revealed just enough information to satisfy curiosity while demonstrating his thoroughness and reach. "Mr. Cassidy," asked Tribune reporter Dave Maxwell, "do you plan to pursue legal action against Ms. Holloway and Mr. Gillespie?" "Legal action suggests I need the courts to deliver justice," Clayton replied. "Sometimes the truth is its own punishment." The implication wasn't lost on anyone present. Clayton had just demonstrated that his capabilities extended far beyond the courtroom. In the space of one afternoon, he destroyed 2 people's lives without breaking a single law. Terrence Walker, a federal prosecutor who'd used Clayton's services in the past, pulled him aside. "Clay, I have to admire the precision. But aren't you concerned about potential retaliation?" Clayton's laugh was genuinely amused. "Terry, they spent months planning to destroy me and couldn't manage it when they had complete access to my life. What exactly do you think they can do to me now?" As the evening wound down, Harold Holloway arrived at the hotel. He'd changed from his wedding attire into simple jeans and a work shirt, looking every one of his 63 years. Clayton met him at the entrance. "Harold, you didn't need to come tonight." "Yes, I did," Harold replied firmly. "You mentioned a proposition earlier. I'd like to hear it." Clayton studied the older man's face, seeing the determination beneath the exhaustion. "Walk with me." They moved to a quiet corner of the lobby, away from the dispersing crowd. "Harold, your daughter made choices that hurt both of us. But you raised her with good values, and it's not your fault she chose to abandon them. I'm offering you a chance to help me ensure that what happened today has lasting consequences." Harold frowned. I'm not sure I understand. I need someone I can trust to manage a new foundation I'm establishing. The Clayton Cassidy Foundation for Truth in Relationships. It will provide free investigative services to people who suspect they are partners of infidelity or fraud. You'd run the day-to-day operations. Harold was quiet for a long moment. You want me to help other people avoid what happened to you? And what happened to you? Clayton corrected. You trusted your daughter, loved her unconditionally, and she was prepared to let you watch her destroy a good man. That betrayal cuts both ways. Harold's jaw tightened as he considered the offer. What would this foundation actually do? We'd provide background checks, surveillance services, financial investigations, all the tools that could have prevented today's disaster. We'd work with law enforcement to identify fraud, support victims of romantic scams, and educate people about the warning signs of deception. And Stephanie would know that I'm helping you? She'd know that you chose truth over blood, Clayton confirmed. That you refused to enable her behavior just because she's your daughter. Harold extended his hand. When do I start? Chapter 5, Building the Trap. 2 weeks after the wedding disaster, Clayton's life had settled into a new rhythm. The foundation paperwork was progressing smoothly, with Harold proving to be an exceptional administrator. His military precision and educational background made him perfect for organizing the complex logistics of what would become the city's most comprehensive truth-telling operation. Clayton's security business had exploded with new clients following the cathedral incident. Word had spread through Denver's elite circles that he'd outmaneuvered 2 people with complete access to his life, demonstrating a level of operational security that impressed even the most paranoid executives. But Clayton wasn't content with defensive victories. Stephanie and Aaron had declared war on him, and wars required total victory, not just successful defense. He'd spent the past 2 weeks gathering intelligence and preparing for the next phase of his campaign. The surveillance reports made for interesting reading. Stephanie had been forced to move back in with her father after her apartment lease was terminated due to reputation concerns from a landlord. Aaron had disappeared entirely, reportedly fleeing to avoid his creditors. But Clayton knew they wouldn't simply accept defeat. People like them never did. His instincts proved correct when Harold brought disturbing news to their Thursday morning meeting. She's been asking questions, Harold said, his weathered face grim. About your business, your clients, your financial setup. She thinks she can find something to use against you. Clayton wasn't surprised. What kind of questions? Whether you've ever bent any laws for clients. Whether you have enemies who might want to hurt you. She's fishing for ammunition, trying to find someone who might help her strike back. And you told her? Harold's expression hardened. I told her that if she came near you or this foundation, I'd turn over every document and recording from her childhood to Adult Protective Services. She has a pattern of manipulation that goes back years. Teachers she lied about, friends she betrayed, boys she hurt. I kept records of everything, hoping she'd outgrow it. Clayton studied the older man with new respect. You've been documenting her behavior for years. A parent notices things, Harold said quietly. I kept hoping she'd change, that she'd find her conscience. I enabled her by cleaning up her messes, making excuses for her behavior. That ends now. Clayton opened his laptop and pulled up surveillance footage from the previous evening. Then you should know that she met with Russell Becker last night at Morrison's bar. Harold's face went white. Russell Becker was a disgraced former police detective who'd been fired for corruption and now worked as a private investigator for anyone willing to pay his fees. He specialized in digging up dirt on people who'd crossed as clients, using methods that often skirted the edge of legality. What does she think Russell can find on you? Harold asked. Nothing, Clayton replied confidently, because I've been preparing for this possibility since I was 18 years old. Every business transaction, every client relationship, every potential legal exposure has been carefully managed and documented. But Russell doesn't know that yet. Clayton pulled up another file, Russell's complete dossier, including his financial records, criminal contacts, and personal vulnerabilities. Mr. Becker has a drinking problem, a gambling addiction, and a desperate need for money to pay his ex-wife's medical bills. He's exactly the kind of person who makes mistakes when he's under pressure. Harold leaned back in his chair. You're going to trap him. I'm going to let him trap himself, Clayton corrected. Stephanie hired him to find dirt on me, but she doesn't know that Russell has already approached 3 of my competitors trying to sell information about my clients. Industrial espionage, violation of attorney-client privilege, conspiracy to commit corporate sabotage. The charges write themselves. Clayton's phone buzzed with a text from his surveillance team. Subject entering target building now. Right on schedule, Clayton murmured, then looked at Harold. Would you like to watch your daughter destroy her last chance at a normal life? Harold's nod was grim, but resolute. Clayton's conference room had been converted into a monitoring station, with multiple screens showing different angles of the office building where Russell Becker operated his one-man detective agency. Clayton's team had been watching the building for days, documenting everyone who came and went. At 2:17 p.m., Stephanie entered the building wearing dark sunglasses and a baseball cap, a disguise that might fool casual observers but was useless against professional surveillance. She was carrying a manila envelope that Clayton's sources confirmed contained every piece of personal information she'd gathered about him during their relationship. She's giving him everything, Harold said, watching his daughter on screen. Bank account numbers, client names, personal habits, everything she learned while you trusted her. Clayton's expression remained calm. She's also committing several felonies in the process. Conspiracy to commit identity theft, attempted corporate espionage, and violation of privacy laws. Russell doesn't realize it yet, but he's about to become an accessory to federal crimes. The meeting lasted 47 minutes. When Stephanie left, she looked confident for the first time since the wedding disaster. She thought she'd finally found a way to strike back at the man who'd humiliated her. What she didn't know was that Russell's office was under FBI surveillance as part of an ongoing investigation into his previous activities. Every word of their conversation had been recorded, and every document she provided was now evidence in a federal case. Clayton's phone rang exactly 23 minutes after Stephanie left the building. Clayton, this is Agent Sarah Travis with the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. We need to speak with you about Russell Becker and potential threats to your business. Clayton smiled as he recognized the voice. Sarah Travis, his ex-fiancée from before his military service, now a federal agent investigating the same case. Stephanie's research had been accurate but incomplete. Sarah was indeed divorced and working in law enforcement, but she was also leading the investigation that would ultimately destroy anyone foolish enough to target Clayton's business. Agent Travis, Clayton replied smoothly. I'd be happy to cooperate with your investigation. Should I bring my attorney? That won't be necessary, Sarah replied. This is a courtesy call. We're about to arrest Russell Becker for multiple federal crimes, and we wanted to inform you that your ex-fiancée, Stephanie Holloway, may have unknowingly made herself an accessory. We'll need you to review some evidence and confirm which information she would have had access to. Clayton looked at Harold, who was listening to the conversation with growing amazement. I'll be there within the hour, Clayton said. After hanging up, Harold shook his head slowly. You knew this would happen. I engineered this to happen, Clayton corrected. Stephanie thinks she's playing chess, but she's actually playing checkers against a grandmaster. Every move she makes leads her deeper into legal jeopardy. Harold was quiet for a moment. What happens to her now? That depends on how much she cooperates with the FBI investigation, Clayton replied. If she's smart, she'll accept a plea agreement and testify against Russell. If she's stubborn, she'll go to prison for conspiracy and espionage charges. And either way, her life as she knew it is over. Clayton's smile was cold but satisfied. Her life as she knew it ended the moment she decided to betray my trust. Everything since then has just been consequences catching up to her choices. As they prepare to leave for the FBI office, Clayton's phone buzzed with another message. This one from an unknown number. Clayton, it's Aaron. We need to talk. I have information about Stephanie that you need to know. She's planning something worse than what you've seen so far. Harold read the message over Clayton's shoulder. Is he telling the truth? Clayton studied the message for a long moment, then replied with a single word. Where? The response came immediately. Riverside Park, East Bench, 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone. This is bigger than you know. Clayton showed the message to Harold, who frowned deeply. It could be a trap, Harold warned. Probably, Clayton agreed. But Aaron's too desperate to be clever right now. His creditors are closing in. The FBI is investigating his connection to Russell, and he knows I have enough evidence to destroy him completely. If he's reaching out, it's because he's terrified of something worse than me. What could be worse than you? Clayton's laugh was genuinely amused. Harold, you're about to learn something important about human nature. There's always someone more dangerous lurking in the shadows. The question is whether Aaron has stumbled into their web, or whether Stephanie has been playing a much deeper game than either of us realized. Chapter 6. The Deeper Game. Riverside Park at 8 p.m. was nearly deserted, the autumn chill keeping most evening joggers and dog walkers inside. Clayton arrived 15 minutes early, using the time to scout the area and position his security team at strategic points. Aaron might be desperate enough to arrange an ambush, but Clayton had survived too many actual wars to be caught off guard in a city park. Aaron appeared exactly on time, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled, his expensive fitness clothing replaced by a worn hoodie and jeans. He moved cautiously toward the bench, constantly checking over his shoulder. "You came," Aaron said as he sat down, maintaining distance between them. "You said you had information," Clayton replied, his voice neutral. "Talk." Aaron pulled out a burner phone and showed Clayton a series of text messages. "These are from Stephanie. She sent them this morning." Clayton read the messages, his expression growing darker with each line. "Aaron, I know you think this is over, but it's just beginning." Clayton thinks he's won, but he has no idea who he's really dealing with. "Meet me at the warehouse district tonight. I have a proposition that will make us both rich and bury Clayton permanently." "She wants revenge that badly?" Clayton asked. "It's not just revenge," Aaron said, his voice shaking slightly. "Clayton, Stephanie isn't who you think she is. Her real name is Stephanie Morrison. Holloway is her stepfather's name." Clayton's mind immediately shifted into operational mode. "Explain." "Her biological father is Jerome Morrison. Does that name mean anything to you?" It did. Jerome Morrison had been a defense contractor who'd attempted to sell classified military technology to foreign buyers 8 years ago. Clayton's security firm had been hired to investigate suspicious activities at Morrison's company, and Clayton's evidence had led to Morrison's arrest and conviction. Morrison had died in federal prison 3 years ago, but not before swearing revenge against everyone who destroyed his life. "She's Morrison's daughter," Clayton said, the pieces falling into place. "More than that," Aaron continued. "She's been planning this for years. The charity gala where you met? She researched everyone who'd be there and targeted you specifically. Our relationship, the engagement, everything, it was all designed to get close enough to destroy you." Clayton felt a cold rage building, but his voice remained controlled. "How long have you known?" "I suspected something was wrong a few months ago, but she didn't tell me the truth until last week. She said once you were humiliated and financially ruined, we could disappear together with whatever money she managed to steal." "But Clayton," Aaron's voice broke slightly. "She never planned to take me with her. I was just another tool." "Prove it." Aaron pulled out a small recording device. "I've been recording our conversations since I figured out what was really happening. She admitted everything. Her real identity, her father's death, her plan to bankrupt you and frame you for criminal activities." Clayton took the device and pocketed it. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because she's not done," Aaron said desperately. "The FBI investigation, the public humiliation, none of that was the real plan. She wanted you to think you'd won, so you'd let your guard down. Tonight, she's meeting with people who can make you disappear permanently." Clayton's blood chilled. "What people?" "Mercenaries. Professional killers. She used some of her father's old contacts to hire them. The plan is to make it look like a business rivalry gone wrong. Someone you exposed or destroyed decided to get even." Clayton was already reaching for his phone to contact a security team when Aaron grabbed his arm. "There's more," Aaron said urgently. "Harold is in danger too. She blames him for choosing you over her. The foundation, your friendship with him. She sees it as the ultimate betrayal." Clayton's phone was buzzing with an incoming call. The caller ID showed Harold's number. Harold, Clayton answered. Clayton, thank God. Harold's voice was tense and frightened. Someone broke into my house. They didn't take anything, but they left a message on my computer. Your daughter wants to see you. Warehouse District, Building 47. Come alone or your friend dies. Clayton was already moving toward his car. Harold, do not go to that warehouse. Call 911 immediately and get to the police station. I can't let anything happen to you because of my daughter's choices, Harold protested. And I can't let anything happen to you because of mine, Clayton replied. Get to safety. That's an order. Clayton hung up and turned to Aaron. You're coming with me. What? No, I'm not going anywhere near. Aaron, Clayton's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. You helped create this situation. Now you're going to help me end it. The warehouse district was a maze of abandoned industrial buildings on the outskirts of Denver. Building 47 was a former textile manufacturing plant that had been empty for over a decade. Clayton's surveillance team had already identified at least 6 armed men positioned around the building, along with 2 vehicles that didn't belong to the neighborhood. Clayton parked 3 blocks away and pulled on a tactical vest while Aaron watched nervously. What are you doing? Aaron asked. What I should have done the moment I learned about Stephanie's betrayal, Clayton replied, checking his sidearm. I'm ending this permanently. You can't just kill them. You're not a murderer. Clayton's laugh was cold. Aaron, I spent 8 years in special forces eliminating threats to national security. These people are threatening me, Harold, and potentially every client who's ever trusted me with sensitive information. This isn't murder, it's pest control. Clayton's earpiece crackled with updates from his surveillance team. 6 targets confirmed. They're expecting someone to walk through the front door. Classic ambush setup. Any sign of Stephanie? Negative. She's either inside or this is a setup to draw you out. Clayton studied the building layout on his tablet. The old textile plant had multiple entrances, several levels, and plenty of cover for a tactical approach. But it also had too many hiding spots for hostages. Change of plans, Clayton announced. Aaron, you're going to call Stephanie and tell her you want to meet. Tell her you're ready to help her finish this. But you want to see her first before you do anything to me. She'll never believe that. She'll believe it because she's desperate and because you're going to be very convincing, Clayton replied, handing Aaron a script he'd typed on his phone. Read this exactly. Every word. Aaron looked at the script and paled. This will make her think I've captured you. That's the idea. Once she reveals her location, my team moves in. And if she doesn't believe me, Clayton's smile was predatory. Then we'll have to be more creative. Chapter 7. The hunt begins. Aaron's hands trembled as he dialed Stephanie's number, reading from Clayton's script while the most dangerous man he'd ever known listened to every word. The phone rang twice before Stephanie's voice answered, tense and suspicious. Aaron, how did you get this number? Steph, it's me. I've got him. Aaron's voice shook, but Clayton nodded approvingly. Fear would make the performance more convincing. Got who? Aaron, where are you? Clayton. I've got Clayton. He came to meet me at the park like I knew he would. And Aaron paused, looking at Clayton's script. I hit him with a tire iron. He's unconscious in my trunk. Stephanie's intake of breath was audible. You're lying. I'm tired of running, Steph. Tired of being afraid. You want revenge? Let's finish this tonight. But I want to see you first. I want to know this is real between us before I cross a line I can't come back from. There was a long pause. Clayton could hear voices in the background, male voices speaking in low, urgent tones. Where are you? Stephanie asked finally. The old warehouse district. I'm in the parking lot of Building 52. It's empty, quiet. Perfect place to finish this. Another pause. Clayton's surveillance team was already moving to Building 52, preparing to track wherever Stephanie was coming from. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Stephanie said. Aaron, I'm proud of you. This is what I needed to see, that you're strong enough to stand with me. I love you, Steph. Everything I've done has been for you. I know, baby. I'll see you soon. The line went dead. Aaron slumped forward, exhaustion and stress finally overwhelming him. She bought it, he said weakly. Phase 1 complete, Clayton replied, already coordinating with his team through his earpiece. Now we find out where she's been hiding and who she's working with. Clayton's surveillance specialist, Timothy Glover, reported through the communication system. 3 vehicles just left the warehouse district, heading toward Building 52. 2 SUVs and a sedan. 6 occupants total, all armed. Any sign of Stephanie? Sedan has a single female passenger matching the target's description. Clayton smiled coldly. Stephanie had taken the bait completely, and now he would finally see the full extent of her operation. But first, he needed to ensure Harold's safety. Timothy, status on Harold Holloway. Secure at police headquarters. Detective Jeremiah Phelps is personally handling his protection detail. Clayton's relationship with the Denver Police Department was complicated but functional. Several detectives owed him favors for information that had closed major cases, and Detective Phelps was one of his most reliable contacts in law enforcement. Good. Aaron, you're going to drive to Building 52 and wait for Stephanie exactly as planned. My team will be positioned to record everything and move in when necessary. Aaron's face went white. You want me to actually meet her? With armed mercenaries? Aaron, you helped create this mess by betraying my trust and enabling Stephanie's deception. Now you're going to help clean it up. Besides, Clayton's voice turned menacing. If you try to run or warn her, my people will stop you permanently. Your only path to survival runs through complete cooperation. The threat was clear and absolute. Aaron nodded reluctantly, understanding that he was trapped between Stephanie's dangerous plan and Clayton's ruthless efficiency. Building 52 was another abandoned warehouse, but unlike Building 47, it had multiple exits and clear sight lines that would allow Clayton's team to control the situation. Aaron parked in the center of the empty lot, his hands gripping the steering wheel as he waited. Clayton watched from a concealed position 200 yards away, communicating with his team through encrypted radios. All units, maintain position until we have positive identification of all targets. I want to know exactly who Stephanie brought to this party. The first SUV arrived at 9:43 p.m., circling the building twice before parking at the far end of the lot. 2 men emerged, professionals by their movement and positioning. They carried themselves like military contractors, experienced in violence and comfortable with weapons. The second SUV positioned itself to block the main exit. 2 more men deployed, taking overwatch positions that could cover the entire lot. Their coordination spoke of extensive training and experience. Finally, Stephanie's sedan pulled up next to Aaron's car. Through his scope, Clayton could see her face clearly for the first time since the cathedral incident. Gone was any pretense of the sweet, innocent woman he'd fallen in love with. Her expression was cold, calculating, and filled with murderous intent. She approached Aaron's car cautiously, scanning the area before tapping on his window. Aaron lowered it, and even from 200 yards away, Clayton could hear their conversation through the surveillance equipment. "Where is he?" Stephanie demanded. "In the trunk," Aaron replied, his voice steady despite his fear. "But Steph, we need to talk first. About us, about what happens after tonight. Show me first." Aaron got out of the car and walked to the trunk, Stephanie following. He popped it open, revealing the empty space, and Stephanie's expression immediately shifted to rage and suspicion. "You lied to me," she snarled. "I had to," Aaron said desperately. "Steph, he knows everything. He knows about your real father, about the plan, about the mercenaries. We need to run tonight before." "Before what?" Clayton's voice cut through the darkness as he emerged from the shadows, his weapon trained on Stephanie. "Before you murder an innocent man to satisfy your daddy's posthumous revenge fantasy?" Stephanie spun toward him, her hand moving towards something in her jacket, but laser sights from multiple directions suddenly painted red dots across her body. "I wouldn't," Clayton advised calmly. "My team has been watching you for the past hour. We know exactly where your hired killers are positioned, and they're currently being detained by federal agents." It was true. While Stephanie had been focused on Aaron's phone call, Clayton had contacted Agent Sarah Travis with a warehouse location and evidence of an active conspiracy to commit murder. The FBI's tactical team had surrounded Building 47 and arrested the mercenaries before they realized their target had never intended to appear. "You son of a bitch," Stephanie hissed. "You think you've won? You destroyed my father, destroyed my family, and you think there won't be consequences? Your father destroyed himself when he chose to sell military secrets to foreign governments," Clayton replied. "I just made sure he couldn't endanger any more American soldiers. And you destroyed yourself when you chose revenge over justice." Stephanie's laugh was bitter and unhinged. "Justice? You call what happened to my family justice? My father was a patriot who saw how corrupt the military-industrial complex had become. He was trying to level the playing field. He was trying to profit from treason," Clayton corrected. "And now his daughter is following in his footsteps." Police sirens were approaching in the distance. Agent Travis and her team were closing in to arrest Stephanie for conspiracy to commit murder, along with the various federal crimes connected to her revenge plot. But Stephanie wasn't finished. "Clayton, you think this ends with my arrest? You have no idea how deep this goes. My father had partners, people who believed in his cause. This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Clayton said firmly. "Your father is dead. His network was dismantled years ago, and you're about to spend the next 20 years in federal prison. Your revenge dies with your freedom." As the FBI vehicles surrounded the parking lot, Stephanie made one final desperate play. She pulled a small device from her jacket, a dead man's switch connected to explosives. "If I can't have my revenge," she screamed, "then everyone dies tonight." Clayton's response was immediate and decisive. The suppressed gunshot dropped Stephanie instantly, the device flying from her hand to clatter harmlessly across the asphalt. His military training had taught him to neutralize threats without hesitation, and Stephanie Morrison had just graduated from annoyance to lethal danger. Agent Travis was the first to reach them, weapon drawn, but lowered when she saw the situation was contained. "Clayton, are you all right?" "I'm fine, Sarah. Aaron needs medical attention for shock, and you'll want to check that device for explosives." As the FBI secured the scene, Clayton felt a strange sense of completion. The threat that had stalked him for months was finally eliminated. But he also knew that Stephanie's final words weren't empty threats. Jerome Morrison's network had been extensive, and other survivors might eventually surface seeking their own revenge. For now, though, the immediate danger was over. Justice had been served, and Clayton Cassidy had once again proven that betraying his trust carried permanent consequences. Chapter 8. Total Victory. 3 months after the warehouse confrontation, Clayton sat in his office reviewing the final FBI reports on the Morrison network. Agent Sarah Travis had been thorough in her investigation, uncovering a web of connections that stretched back years and involved multiple criminal enterprises. "The last of Morrison's associates was arrested in Miami yesterday," Sarah reported during their weekly briefing. "Marcus Webb, former CIA operative turned arms dealer. He'd been planning to continue Stephanie's work, but our surveillance caught him meeting with known terrorists." Clayton nodded, satisfied. "Any remaining threats?" "None that we can identify. The Morrison network is completely dismantled. Your actions in the warehouse saved dozens of lives and potentially prevented a major terrorist attack." Harold knocked on the office door, entering with his weekly Foundation report. At 73, he looked healthier and more focused than he had in years. Running the Truth Foundation had given him a sense of purpose that retirement had lacked. "The Foundation processed 47 cases this week," Harold announced. "We've exposed 12 cheating spouses, prevented 3 marriage frauds, and helped 6 families avoid financial scams. The success rate is unprecedented." Clayton smiled with genuine satisfaction. The Foundation had become more successful than he'd initially envisioned, serving as both a public service and a powerful deterrent to anyone considering romantic fraud in the Denver area. "Any interesting cases?" Clayton asked. "Actually, yes. A wealthy widow contacted us about her new boyfriend, a charming younger man who seemed too good to be true. Our investigation revealed he was running the same scam on 5 different women simultaneously. Outcome: all 5 women are pressing charges. He's looking at 15 years for fraud and identity theft." Clayton's reputation had only grown stronger following the Morrison affair. Corporate clients now viewed him as someone who could handle threats they couldn't even imagine, and his security consulting business had expanded internationally. But perhaps the most satisfying development was Aaron Gillespie's transformation. Following his cooperation with the FBI and his role in exposing Stephanie's murder plot, Aaron had entered a federal witness protection program. More importantly, he'd undergone extensive therapy for his gambling addiction and had emerged as a genuinely reformed man. Clayton's phone buzzed with a message from Aaron, now living under a new identity in Oregon, 6 months clean from gambling. Started a nonprofit helping other addicts. Thank you for giving me a chance to make things right. Clayton showed the message to Harold, who smiled approvingly. Redemption is possible, even for people who make terrible choices. For some people, Clayton corrected, Aaron made mistakes driven by weakness and addiction. Stephanie made choices driven by hatred and revenge. There's a difference. The difference had become even clearer during the FBI's psychological evaluation of Stephanie before her death. The report revealed a deeply disturbed individual who had spent years planning elaborate revenge scenarios, not just against Clayton, but against anyone she perceived as having wronged her family. She had detailed files on over 30 people, Sarah had explained. Judges, prosecutors, FBI agents, military officials, anyone connected to her father's case. Clayton, you weren't her only target. You were just the first. The realization that he'd prevented a potential massacre had shifted Clayton's perspective on the entire affair. What he'd initially seen as personal betrayal had actually been a much larger threat to public safety. Detective Jeremiah Phelps visited Clayton's office that afternoon with an update on related cases. The weapons cache we found in Stephanie's storage unit would have armed a small military unit. She'd been planning something catastrophic. Any idea what her ultimate target was? Based on her journals and computer files, she wanted to bomb the federal courthouse during a ceremony honoring her father's victims. She estimated it would have killed over 200 people, including several families of soldiers who died because of her father's treason. Clayton felt a cold satisfaction knowing that his actions had prevented such a tragedy. Justice wasn't just about personal revenge. It was about protecting innocent people from dangerous predators. The knock on his office door interrupted his thoughts. His assistant announced that he had a visitor, someone he wasn't expecting. Jerome Morrison Jr. walked into Clayton's office with the calm confidence of a man who'd spent years planning this moment. He was Stephanie's older brother, a successful attorney who'd legally changed his name years ago to distance himself from his father's crimes. Mr. Cassidy, Jerome said, extending his hand. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. Clayton studied the man carefully, noting the family resemblance, but also the fundamental differences in bearing and presentation. Where Stephanie had projected false sweetness over hidden malice, Jerome appeared genuinely professional and direct. What can I do for you, Mr. Morrison? Actually, it's Jerome Whitman now. I changed my name after our father's arrest to protect my legal career. I wanted to thank you personally for stopping my sister before she could hurt more innocent people. Clayton raised an eyebrow. That's not what I expected to hear from Jerome Morrison's son. Jerome sat down uninvited, his expression serious. Mr. Cassidy, I love my sister, but I wasn't blind to what she'd become. When our father was arrested, I accepted that he'd made choices that destroyed our family. Stephanie never accepted it. She spent years consumed by rage and fantasies of revenge. You knew about her plans? I suspected she was planning something, but I had no idea how far she'd gone until the FBI contacted me after her death. When I saw the evidence, the weapons, the target list, the detailed murder plans, I realized that you didn't just defend yourself. You prevented a terrorist attack. Jerome pulled out a legal document and placed it on Clayton's desk. This is a formal statement clearing you of any wrongdoing in my sister's death. It also includes evidence that she'd threatened my own family when I refused to help her. Clayton scanned the document, noting its thoroughness and legal precision. Why are you doing this? Because justice matters more than family loyalty, Jerome replied. My father chose treason over duty. My sister chose revenge over healing. I'm choosing to break the cycle. And professionally, this can't be easy for your legal career. Jerome's smile was rueful. Actually, several firms have approached me about joining their white-collar defense practices. Apparently, having a family member who is a cautionary tale about the consequences of criminal behavior makes me valuable in convincing clients to cooperate with authorities. Clayton found himself respecting Jerome's pragmatic approach to his family's legacy. What happens now? Now I live my life according to my own principles, not my father's failures or my sister's hatred. And I wanted you to know that not everyone in the Morrison family believes in revenge over justice. After Jerome left, Clayton reflected on the complex dynamics of family loyalty and personal responsibility. Harold had chosen to support justice over his daughter's criminal behavior. Aaron had chosen redemption over continued deception. Jerome had chosen his own principles over family legacy. The foundation received its largest donation ever that week, an anonymous contribution of $5 million with a simple note, "For truth in all relationships, romantic and familial." Clayton suspected the donation came from Jerome Whitman, but he didn't investigate. Some gestures of support deserve privacy and respect. As evening approached, Clayton walked through his office building, observing the controlled efficiency of his expanding empire. The security consulting business now operated on 3 continents. The Truth Foundation had inspired similar organizations in 12 other cities. His reputation as someone who never forgot a betrayal had become a powerful deterrent against corporate espionage and romantic fraud. But perhaps most importantly, he learned to distinguish between justice and revenge, between necessary action and excessive retaliation. Stephanie Morrison had deserved to face consequences for her actions, but those consequences were proportional to her crimes and served to protect others. Clayton Cassidy had won completely, but he'd won by being better than his enemies, not by becoming them. Chapter 9. Legacy of Truth. 2 years after the Morrison affair, Clayton stood before the Denver City Council as they officially recognized the Truth Foundation as a model for national implementation. The foundation had prevented over 300 cases of romantic fraud, exposed dozens of financial scams, and helped law enforcement solve numerous cold cases involving identity theft and marriage fraud. The foundation's success rate is unprecedented, Mayor Patricia Graham announced to the assembled crowd. In 2 years, they've saved Denver residents over $40 million in potential fraud losses and prevented countless cases of emotional and financial devastation. Harold sat in the front row, wearing a new suit and the kind of satisfied expression that came from meaningful work. At 75, he'd found his true calling in protecting others from the kind of betrayal his daughter had represented. Clayton's acceptance speech was brief and precise. The Truth Foundation exists because deception destroys lives, families, and communities. We've proven that with proper investigation and evidence, truth always prevails over manipulation. We're honored to serve this community and protect innocent people from predators who prey on trust and love. The audience included several faces that had become important parts of Clayton's life over the past 2 years. Agent Sarah Travis sat with her new husband, a fellow FBI agent she'd met during the Morrison investigation. Detective Jeremiah Phelps had been promoted to captain and now oversaw the police department's fraud division. Even Jerome Whitman attended, representing the legal community's support for the foundation's work. After the ceremony, Clayton hosted a reception at his office building. The gathering included clients, law enforcement contacts, and foundation supporters, a network of people united by their commitment to truth and justice. Aaron Gillespie attended virtually, joining by video call from his new home in Portland. His nonprofit for gambling addiction recovery had expanded to serve 3 states, and he'd become a respected advocate for rehabilitation over punishment. Clayton, Aaron said during his brief remarks, 2 years ago, I was a broken man who'd betrayed his closest friend and nearly destroyed his own life. Today, I'm helping other people find their way back from similar mistakes. That transformation was only possible because you showed me that accountability and redemption can coexist. Clayton nodded acknowledgement. Aaron's journey had been difficult but genuine, proving that some people could learn from their mistakes and become better than their worst choices. The most meaningful moment came when Harold presented Clayton with a special recognition from the families they'd helped. This plaque represents over 1,000 people who avoided financial, emotional, or physical harm because of the foundation's work. You've created something that will protect innocent people for generations. Clayton accepted the recognition with genuine gratitude. Building something larger than personal success had given his life a satisfaction that wealth and reputation alone couldn't provide. As the reception wound down, Clayton found himself in conversation with Dr. Emma Washington, a psychologist who'd helped develop the Foundation's victim support programs. Clayton, I have to ask, do you ever wonder what might have happened if you'd handled the Morrison situation differently? If you try to help Stephanie instead of exposing her? Clayton considered the question seriously. Dr. Washington, I spent months trying to understand why someone I loved could plan such elaborate deception. The investigation into her background revealed years of manipulation, fraud, and escalating criminal behavior. Stephanie Morrison wasn't a troubled woman who made a mistake. She was a predator who'd spent her adult life destroying other people's lives. But surely some intervention could have prevented the terrorist attack she was planning. Clayton interrupted gently. The weapons cache, the target lists, the detailed plans to murder hundreds of innocent people. Some people can't be saved because they don't want salvation. They want destruction. Dr. Washington nodded slowly. You're right, of course. It's just difficult to accept that some people are beyond redemption. The difficult truth is that redemption requires genuine remorse and a willingness to change, Clayton replied. Aaron had both. Stephanie had neither. My job isn't to save everyone. It's to protect the innocent from those who can't be saved. Later that evening, Clayton sat in his private office reviewing the Foundation's expansion plans. They'd received requests from law enforcement agencies in 15 states to establish similar programs. The model was scalable and effective, proving that truth-based investigation could prevent crime more efficiently than traditional reactive policing. His personal security business continued to thrive, but Clayton found himself increasingly focused on the Foundation's mission. Protecting people from romantic and financial predators felt more meaningful than corporate security consulting, though both served important purposes. Clayton's phone rang with a call from an unlisted number. He answered cautiously, unsure who would contact him through such secure channels. Mr. Cassidy, this is Secretary of Homeland Security Dave Maxwell. I hope you have a moment to discuss a matter of national importance. Clayton straightened, recognizing the name from his government contacts. Of course, Mr. Secretary. The Truth Foundation's success has attracted attention at the highest levels of government. We're seeing a massive increase in romance scams targeting military families, federal employees, and defense contractors. These operations appear to be coordinated by foreign intelligence services seeking to compromise American security personnel. Clayton immediately understood the implications. You want to expand the Foundation's mission to include counterintelligence operations. Exactly. We're prepared to provide significant federal funding and resources to help you identify and neutralize these threats before they compromise national security. Your track record suggests you're uniquely qualified for this type of work. Clayton smiled, recognizing the opportunity to serve his country while expanding the Foundation's protective mission. I'd be honored to discuss the details. Excellent. We'll arrange a briefing at the federal building next week. Mr. Cassidy, your work in Denver has already prevented multiple security breaches that we're only now fully understanding. This expansion could protect thousands of American families and preserve countless military secrets. After the call ended, Clayton reflected on how far he'd traveled from the broken man standing at an altar 2 years ago. Stephanie Morrison's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also revealed his true calling, protecting innocent people from predators who exploited trust and love for personal gain. Harold knocked on the door and entered with the evening security report. Building is secure, all staff have departed safely, and tomorrow's schedule is confirmed. Harold, how do you feel about expanding our operations to serve military families nationwide? Harold's eyes lit up with interest. That sounds like exactly the kind of work this foundation was meant to do. When do we start? Clayton looked out his office window at the Denver skyline, thinking about all the innocent people who would sleep safely tonight because predators knew the Truth Foundation was watching. Tomorrow, that protection would begin expanding across the entire country. We start by remembering that truth always wins, Clayton said. It just needs the right people fighting for it. The Truth Foundation's motto, inscribed on the wall behind Clayton's desk, captured the essence of everything they'd built. In truth we trust, in justice we serve, in love we protect. Clayton Cassidy had won more than personal victory over his betrayers. He'd created a legacy that would protect innocent people from deception and manipulation for generations to come. The wedding that never was had become the foundation for something far more valuable than marriage, a commitment to truth that could never be broken by lies. And in the end, that was the most complete victory possible, turning personal betrayal into public service, transforming private pain into protection for others, and proving that truth, once defended properly, could never again be defeated by deception. The man who'd once trusted blindly had become the guardian who helped others see clearly. And that transformation was worth more than any revenge could ever be. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.